Hi everyone, welcome to the GDC Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis. I am the invisible voice inside your head. I am here as always. We are here on the GDC Twitch channel playing interesting games, talking to interesting people who make them. Today we are checking out Afterparty, which comes from Night School Studio based in Los Angeles. And one of the people from Night School is here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Adam, how you doing? Could you introduce yourself? Because you can do it better than I can.
Well, thank you. Hi, I'm Adam Hines. I co-founded Night School Studio about 5 or 6 years ago with my cousin, Sean. And I'm kind of the de facto game director, and I wrote kind of 80 to 90% of the script of this game. And then I had a ton of help with the design and the art, and the whole rest of the team built out it all.
Right on. I could describe Afterparty. I would describe it as a kind of comedy game, comedy adventure where you're fighting your way out of hell, except instead of fighting your way out of hell, you're drinking your way out of hell. And there's Twitter in hell, which we're just seeing right now behind us. Adam, how would you describe Afterparty?
Afterparty. I would describe Afterparty as a game about two college kids, Milo and Lola, who they just graduated college. They've been best friends their entire lives, and they think they're about to kind of leave school and start their venture off into adulthood and kind of figure out who they want to be. But it turns out that they have died. They have died tragically and have gone to hell, and they do not remember how, and they do not remember why. But throughout kind of the first hour where they get processed, and it's kind of like a hell version of DMV where you have to stand in line and kind of get accused of the things that you've done and assigned what your torture will be. Right before they're about to get assigned, the kind of work bell chimes to 6, and the demon's like, "Okay, I'm going home. Report back here in the afternoon." And they're like, "Okay, but what are we supposed to do until then?" And he's like, just hang out and get your stuff straight, because you're going to be in hell now for the rest of eternity. And they decide to go to a bar, and at the bar they figure out that there's a loophole, and if you are able to find Satan and outdrink him and outparty him, he'll actually let you back to Earth. So Milo and Lola specifically are two people who are not big partiers. Milo is a guy who his whole schooling years and college life, he's kind of wanted to be more of a social guy and wanted to kind of make more friends, and so it's been a little hard for him. And Lola's the type of person who just does not care. She just wants to make an impact in the world and make a positive change. So she's been very kind of focused on her career and what she wants to do. So they're both kind of untrained in really being party animals. So, of course, this is like the worst situation for them to fall in, because now they're stuck in hell. So that's the game, is trying to basically be on this supernatural adventure bar crawl where you're trying to find Satan and out party him.
Right on. Alex, I forgot to let you introduce yourself. Hi, who are you?
I was following podcast rules. I was seeing how long we could go with me just not talking.
Alex, how you doing?
Hey, what's up? I'm all right. I work on GDC with Brian here. I'm having a fantastic time. Adam, thank you for joining us. This game is super cool. I kind of want to start by just digging right into the writing. I played a little bit, and I'm just really charmed by these characters and the situations they fall into. Like, how do you write funny characters that are a decade or more younger than you?
It's a good question. Like, people typically in writing themselves up, is that they try to think of it in that way, of thinking of it like, okay, now I'm a 22-year-old person with this specific upbringing, and this is where I live, and I have to try to write.
Oops, hold on, Adam. Can you restart that answer? We lost you to. We lost you to internet lag.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I liked it.
Yes. No, I was just saying that I feel like people kind of trip themselves up in writing characters where they try to really put themselves very hyper-specifically mindset, where if they're writing like a 16-year-old or a 22-year-old or an 80-year-old, and location would talk and act. And I kind of, and we as a studio definitely just approach it as characters and not really caring if they don't exactly sound like your typical 21-year-old or 25-year-old or 16-year-old. It's one of those things where this is going to be a very random reference, but I remember when Dawson's Creek came out, and the reviews for that show were like, no teenager talks like this. Like, they talk too smart. And I remember thinking, why is that a bad thing? That's okay if the characters sound kind of different than how you would naturalistically expect them to be able to express themselves. As long as the stories are impactful and interesting and the characters are unique and engaging, then you're doing your job, and that's all you really need to worry about. So yeah, I just took a lot from my own life too, and from just people that I knew and their own concerns. And this is one of those things where, particularly with these characters, you just hear over and over again, just you're afraid that you're kind of missing out, and it's that FOMO thing of just, I don't think I'm ever at the right place that I want to be. I'm not having as much fun as I can. And with Instagram and the internet, that's just kind of ramping up that feeling of you're only seeing everyone else's best times, and you think if you're not having those times too, then you're doing something wrong. And that's definitely kind of Milo's point of view. And then just how awful everything seems right now with just everything that's pouring out every day from the news. Just, I feel like particularly the younger generation, I'm sure, just feels a helplessness in just how to make a positive change and just where to even start. So that's kind of where Lola is, where she's at too.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like, the internet does not want these secrets to get out, so you got kind of choppy in the middle of that there.
I'm sorry.
No, it was great. It's not your fault at all. Again, it's higher powers. But like, if anyone missed it, like, what I got from that is that you really didn't stress too much about trying to write young people. You tried to write characters who had meaningful concerns and meaningful personalities, and just went from there. And it seems to really pay off. I'm curious because I find, the art of writing of good writing in a game seems so mysterious. Like, how did you check yourself on this? Did you play test it with people of a certain age group or certain places? Did you show it to friends? Did you like have consultants? Like, how did you verify that the work you were putting out was actually something that's like funny and entertaining to people who don't know you?
Yeah. So we are,
because it is.
Yeah, it's kind of a combo. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of a combo of things. One is that, I and Sean and I, and the leads at the studio, kind of always have a very concrete and kind of very specific feeling that we want to go after, and we're always just very honest with ourselves if we're hitting the mark or not. So it's just a lot of rewriting and a lot of really just going over and over and over and editing and just trying to be very honest with ourselves if it's working or not. Obviously within kind of the time constraints that we have to make a game and still stay an actual company. But so we just kind of really just have a lot of faith in our abilities to make this stuff, but then also the team who's playing this stuff and reading the scripts and doing and kind of really thinking about it a lot. They're always very honest with us if they feel like a joke has gone too far, or if a character is not getting enough room, or just any kind of issues that they feel like cropping up, where if I'm like writing page 600 of an 1800 page script and I'm just very, very focused on, okay, this quest needs something X, Y, and Z. If I'm kind of missing that, actually no, Milo needs a moment here, or Lola needs more of a scene here. The people who are just kind of making the game and implementing it will always tap me on the shoulder and tap us on the shoulder and say, I'm really feeling this and that, and I'm really feeling like this thing misses the mark, or this joke is punching down, or so we're just kind of always really trying to check ourselves. And with these games in particular, it's frustratingly hard to kind of put it in front of people who aren't actually making it yet to play it and play test it and really see how it's working, just because these games are horrible until they're like almost done. So it's like, until it's like the animations are doing the right thing and all the VO is in and the timing is there, because they're so story focused, that if even if everything is in but just the voice over timing is off, then it's like that kills every joke, and the feeling is very different than the one that we want. So it's tough to kind of put it in players' hands until it's almost too late to change too many things, which makes it pretty scary when we're working on it. But that's just why we always have to really kind of be really honest with ourselves and keep us in check about what's really working and what's not, and going back, and if it's not working, try and get it to you.
Over in chat, StatGstat has a good question. How far did you go through an iteration, I guess, on each section before you checked whether it was working? StatGstat guesses you didn't rewrite the entire story every time you were iterating on a section.
We did not. So yeah, basically our process is that we'll come up with a story, just conceit. And the obvious one for this one was, if you're stuck in hell, you have to outdrink a bunch of demons and characters that you'll be running into. So it's a bar crawl focused game with kind of a supernatural bend, and we'll try and think of different just pure gameplay mechanics that can support that and be built around it. And once we've kind of like kicked the tires on that a ton and felt like good about kind of moving on to what story then can kind of support the gameplay mechanics, then we try and make a really strong outline of just, okay, these are the big beats. This is like chapter 0, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And really go over that and debate it and argue and see how much that we need and how much that we want. And then we just start to just jump in and we just write each scene. And we'll have read-throughs of each scene where the entire team kind of comes in and plays a part. And then one person will actually play the scene, meaning they'll like make the choices and we'll jump in the script to where that goes. And at the end, we just kind of talk about it, and we talk about what has worked and what didn't, what jokes you thought were good, where you were confused. That's kind of to know your goals and what you're doing. And TV show, you can kind of surprise the audience, like, oh, I didn't know that guy was like the thief the whole time. But in the game, you kind of have to know it's being elements of narrative surprise. So it's kind of a full act. I'm just smoothing things from the scripting phase, and then once we feel like everything is pretty locked in to a degree that we're confident that even if there are rewrites, which there always are, we can start building the big pieces. Then we just start to implement things and play it as we can. But there's typically 2 or 3 more passes of rewrites once we start to play it and we see like, this is taking too long, or I don't know why I'm doing this is confusing, and we'll change and tweak.
Nice. Yeah, we should talk a bit about sort of the way you overlaid a system of drinking on top of all that. I think Brian's seen more of it than I have, so I can't speak to it with any kind of like
hopefully
expertise.
We'll see it in a second, but it's the system where drinking changes the dialogue choices, but which creates a third. It sort of creates like, if there's a dialogue choice that's usually 2 options, there's a third option. But I guess we can, so far from what I've seen, there's 5 different options for a conversation, depending on what drink you get. But you can only access one of the you only have 3 available to you. But it seems like you guys planned a total of 5 for these conversations. Like, drinking game logic is fun. How'd you come up with that, and what's the logic behind it from a structuring and scripting standpoint?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to make drinking be fun in this game and be 100% fun, and not be any sort of a hindrance or penalize you. Because in every other game, it had felt like, you know, you take a drink, and like in Red Dead, you'll drink and the screen will get wobbly and like you can't walk. And we were like, well, we obviously can't do that with this game, because the entire game is about going to bars and having a drink and have that affect you. So we came up with this concept where basically in hell, these drinks kind of act more like a magical potion, where the ingredients that go into these drinks are impossible to make here. They're like, it's a child's tears with a dollop of insanity, and that makes this drink. And when you drink and every drink in the game, like you said, every bar has 4 drinks. And that basically comes out to about 3 specific types of personality traits that you can get per bar. So, for instance, you'll go into a bar and you'll see the menu, and based on the reviews, you'll get an idea of what that drink will do. So it might make you more angry, or it might make you more want to flirt with people in the bar, or it might make you talk like a pirate, or talk like a mobster, or throw up your conscience, and then your conscience is a little character, then all your choices are bad. So the variety of kind of what the drinks can do to you is is pretty far. So we wanted to kind of expand on Oxenfree, our first game. That game, for those of you who haven't seen it, you always have permanently 3 choices whenever your opportunity to speak comes up, and those come directly from what Alex, the character you play as, what her personality would just naturally let her or allow her to say. Just the things that person would possibly want to say are kind of your choices in that game. And in this game, we wanted to make it more like, no, you can kind of set what you want your personality type to be based on when you walk in the bar and you kind of survey who's there and what the bar is kind of like. Because it was important for us to kind of get at the feeling of an actual bar crawl, meaning when you go out and you're like, nah, actually, I know I can't drink too much vodka because when I drink vodka, I get pissed off. Or when I drink Jack, I'll just end up passed out. So, but maybe you want to feel those ways, so you kind of drink in that specific way. So we really wanted you to kind of have that in this game. And it kind of dovetails into the puzzles and kind of how you want to approach certain obstacles and goals. Like if there's a part early in the game where some friends of yours go upstairs to a private VIP part of the bar, and the bouncer won't let you up. So you can drink a bunch of drinks and play beer pong against a other person, and to impress them, you can insult them based on the personality type that you have in the drink. Or you can drink a particular kind of concoction that'll make you more angry and then kind of rile up two people that are already in an argument into a fight, and then that'll distract the guy, and then that can get you upstairs then. So we just wanted you to kind of be able to overcome certain challenges and play these bars and kind of the personality type that you wanted to. And then also just to kind of feed multiple playthroughs, just because every time you say anything, there's some joke. And if you didn't like the last joke, if you wait 10 seconds, there's going to be a new joke. So it's just that type of game.
Right on. Yeah, I imagine that must have complicated the production process. Like, how did that change the way you guys approach designing, laying out, and sort of writing through all these different options?
It didn't change it too much. It changed it in the way that you just had to know ahead of time that, okay, all of these events are going to happen in this bar. So we want to make sure that the drinks that you can get and that will change your personality make sense for those types of events. So, for instance, there's a bar where you go into, and there's a kind of a light puzzle and a conversation about trying to convince someone to at least make an effort with someone that they just broke up with. And then there's other stuff that also happens in that bar. But we knew that at least one drink then had to be kind of focused on romance, just because that was going to be a thing that was going to happen in that spot. So it was just really a matter of kind of charting that out ahead of time and making sure that all made sense. Whereas in Oxenfree or in other narrative games, it's very just context-based. Just the things that you say above your head or in the menu are just exactly what needed to be in that at that time. But in this game, of course, if you're drinking a drink and the drink makes you really angry, there has to be an angry choice for every single possible time you can speak in that bar. And that made it hard sometimes, because it's like, if you want to challenge somebody to a fight, we have to kind of let you do that and have it somehow get back to the main plot and not spiral out of control to this whole other game. So that was really the hardest part, was just making it feel still like you're able to customize the experience as much as you would want to, but not make a game that has 800 hours worth of content still.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I think this game is pretty funny and comedic timing. You would think, making a game is hella hard, but you have full control over like everything. You can set the timing, you can set the speed of the dialogue, you can pick the actors. You would think it'd be pretty easy, but actually it's incredibly hard.
You would think, yes. Yeah. You would think it would be very easy. Honestly, the tough part, particularly with comedy, is just the timing. If the timing's off even a bit, then the joke is killed. And particularly with with a game that we really, in all of our games, we really want you to always have just control of the character as much as possible. So there's very little times where we'll force you to like stand here or force you to lock in, or the camera will move in and we'll force the characters to walk around. We definitely had to do that more in this game than Oxenfree, just because there's way more going on the screen, and it kind of gave Oxenfree a cool feeling because you're just with one other character, kind of in these very spooky, empty outside environments for the most part. And it felt good to let you just kind of be running around and climbing trees and jumping on logs and stuff as you're having a conversation, and not really care that it doesn't really look like you're looking at the person you're talking to, just because you're walking and you're going on hikes and things. But in this game, you're like sitting at bars and you're leaning on stools and you're looking at a billion characters on screen, and we really kind of had to tweak that a bit just to make sure that the timing there and the voice acting kind of all worked. But it was still hard at times, because we'll watch people play it, and I'm like, oh, here comes this brilliant joke, and then they'll like walk off screen like right when it hits, and like okay.
Gotcha.
But you just have to like let that go, just because of course the freedom of being able to control it is worth so much more than like, now you got my dumb poop joke that I put in there. So
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if Brian, if you want to walk back to the bar for a second, but like, how many drinks did you have to come up with for this game? It seems like a lot of.
I don't think I can order another drink, but there were 4 right there.
There were very good ones.
How many drinks? I guess the question is, how many
I
drinks
think
did you have to come up
after just stop talking, you might be able to. But and the naming the drinks were a ton of fun.
Nice.
Just because I was sure and give them these horrible things. So yeah.
Nice. I want to jump back to chat real quick, and a quick reminder: we didn't say at the top, I don't think, but if you have any questions specifically about game design or game development in general, please throw them in chat, and we will do our best to relay them. Statue Sat's already on it, and they want to know again. This game reminds them of Valhalla a little bit, so they want to know: were there any particular games that inspired you or the team?
It was definitely, for me at least, the 2 games I kept referring to in my head, it was the Space Quest series from Sierra from the 90s, and the old Sam & Max Hit the Road. So these are 2 adventure games, and they placed a lot of emphasis on comedy, and Sam & Max in particular, just the timing and the cartoon nature of it, and those conversations between the Sam and Max. It's like movie level quality, just everything about that game. And that was definitely like our bar that we wanted to hit. And the Space Quest series and the Monkey Island games too, they do a lot of fun things where they always kind of break the fourth wall and kind of poke at the player. And we wanted to do that a lot with the Sister Mary Wormhorn character, which I think you'll eventually see in this playthrough. But this is she's the personal demon that you get assigned early on, and she's there to kind of be poking in the games world. She's there to kind of be tormenting you in the hours where you're not being physically tortured. So that means that she brings up like your past and mistakes that you've made, and will point out choices that the player has done and kind of made, and kind of makes fun of you just for even playing a game. So we really wanted her to kind of be that fourth wall breaking type. So kind of like her and Satan are the only 2 characters in the game where they like know they're in a game and kind of talk around it and kind of allude to that. So those are 2 big kind of inspirations.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, coming off of Oxenfree and like jumping into this, but like I feel like I don't want to gloss over the fact, you guys did at least one other big game project, which was the Mr. Robot mobile game, which is like a significant thing. So I'm curious, like, were there any things you learned in that process or that production that influenced the way you approached designing this game?
Mr. Robot, it was a unique game in that it's that one we really wanted you to feel like you're just texting, and to make it feel like you are texting another human, and that everything on your phone kind of should reflect that, and it should be this very kind of seamless thing that you almost forget like you're playing a game. And with that one, we yeah, we really kind of leaned into the actual physical act of that. So it's like you'll see the text come in, and you'll see like you, the person that is choosing it, like you'll see him like make a mistake, erase, and then we'll write it again, and really kind of play with just kind of how people talk on text versus how they talk in real life.
Yeah.
So if anything, it kind of just like was a good exercise in just thinking it totally outside of the box before jumping into another very real time thing. But yeah, and two, that was done for an external partner, because of course we had partnered up with the Mr. Robot team to kind of make that game.
Sure.
So just like hearing kind of what they were interested in, and it was funny, like when we first started working on it, like with Oxenfree, we're kind of pitching our idea for this game of like, okay, so it's all going to be on your phone text. And like in Oxenfree, you'll be able to control the story, and you'll have a million different endings. And they're like, no, no. Mr. Robot is a set thing. You will not have multiple endings. Let's have a very specific end and a very specific thing. We're like, oh, okay. And in making that game, we're like, oh man, are people gonna like think it's boring if it's too straightforward? And nobody really cared. They just thought it was a cool, fun thing still, and you're able to make enough choices within it to still feel like you're picking apart the game. So we took that lesson too in here, and not focus so much on being able to every single thing you say be able to branch and dovetail back and and just kind of focus on making just a really good story that you can, like, there are a lot of different kind of endings, and halfway through the game and after party, it kind of leaves it up to the goal you want to be, not to spoil things, but kind of changes from the beginning of like, just have to get out of hell. Kind of becomes more of a complicated, like, what do we really want?
So I wonder.
I was going to say hell seems to be getting in the way of our chat.
Making a really good plot. Sorry.
It's okay. Adam, real quick, are you on Wi-Fi?
I am on Wi-Fi.
Does your computer have an Ethernet port?
It does not.
We are summoning demons.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, because actually, unfortunately, if I unplug it or move it, like it'll just shut off because my battery is completely dead.
Yeah. Let's not do that. We'll muscle through.
Okay.
Sorry. I think we got the most of that. Adam, I think we can. I know you're game director. I'm gonna ask for your brain as a game director for a moment. How do you and your team prioritize creating? I think like a lot of narrative games sort of struggle from, in order to be truly compelling, they need to be end to end with content and end to end with interesting places to look in the game. How do you and your team like sort of process? Like, we're standing in a room now that like has a lot of unique stuff, like the guitar, the art on the wall, the demons like kind of mingling in the foreground and background, like the people. I guess some of the people get reused, but what's your studio's process for working as a small team and still making something that feels like it's loaded with personality, and you're sort of able to trade on more than just words alone?
Yeah, we had to come up with a very smart system early on for just how to make a lot of characters. So we kind of came up with this demon and human making toolkit where we were able to kind of make a lot of different heads and arms and legs and body types, and kind of combine, almost systemize. And then for the bars themselves, yeah, we just really tried to plan out things very well ahead of time in terms of what each bar would need and what each bar the feel would be in the art style, and just make sure that we kind of stick to that. And once we're sticking to that, not make a lot of changes after the fact. But yeah, because we're so small, I mean, we have a team of about 4 artists, and yeah, they just had to make every single thing that you see in this game. So we weren't able to say like, oh, if it's not working in 8 months, we'll kind of like pivot and change things. Like, once we're kind of building things, we have to be confident that that's what we want. So it was really just a matter of kind of making a really solid outline for the story and an outline for the game mechanics and the overall design, and really sticking to those things.
Nice. What do you think makes a good story?
What I think makes a good story is always kind of specificity. Specificity in terms of how characters express themselves. Like I personally am fine with cliches. Like I feel like Shakespeare's rightly considered like the greatest writer of all time, and no one says like, man, his plot twists are so great, or because every story that he did came from something else, which is what makes those stories great, or just how the characters put how they're feeling. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that ultimately is what makes a good story, is just it's hyper specific to what the writer or the team or the artist kind of wants to talk about or wants to say, and having the characters kind of express that in a very way, in a way that is unique to them. And I'll happily watch any story about anything as long as I feel like I'm seeing new perspectives about the same old stuff.
Right. That's so interesting. I mean, that would seem to flow directly out of your work on Mr. Robot, where that fear about not having like a panoply of endings sort of like winnowed down, and you focus more on characters and character interaction and that kind of thing. There's another question here in chat from StatueStat. They want to know, like, so just what do you think about game companies specifically, pushing back on people spoiling games? You know, like, it's been a while, but I think they're referring to stuff like when Persona 5 came out, and you know, people were like, don't stream it, don't talk about it.
Ironically, they were limiting streams a lot, like, which ironically we said is we're streaming Afterparty and spoiling the second hour.
Yeah. You make narrative games. How do you feel about that?
Oh no, he froze.
Oh no. The internet just shut him down. He's like, nope, can't let these opinions get out.
Man, did the PR team jump in here and sabotage the stream or what? Guys,
it's Halloween comes early today. Spooky internet.
Adam, if you can still hear me, shoot me a message in Skype and we can try and reconnect you. Man, it's also kind of funny because his face just sort of froze. This is really awkward.
In the meantime, what's up, chat?
What's up,
How's
Chat?
it going out there?
How you doing? There's 15 of you. Come on, StatueStat can't be the only one with a keyboard.
Do you guys play this game? You like it?
Yeah.
It seems good.
It's a lot of fun. Like I've been having to conceal my laughter over here because I've been laughing out loud at some of the jokes.
I'm serious, man. Humor's really hard to do in games. That's why this game, Outer Worlds 2, like the writing and the timing, it's just, it's hard work. Man.
I don't know. We're this.
You just keep playing.
Yeah.
I want to see where this goes. Yeah.
Maybe his laptop died.
He probably moved it.
This is so wild. Never seen this happen. I'm just having a bad tick week.
Probably got so excited about spoilers that he knocked his laptop over and it shut off. Let's give it a couple minutes, see if he comes back, and then we can call it. Man.
I'm just going to send him a message. You're going to see something weird on screen for a second, guys.
Do you think they ever get out of hell?
We're back.
What's
good? Up?
Did something happen at your end, Adam, or did you just hear us like talking for a couple seconds about how we couldn't hear you?
Yes. It was just the let out of me shouting like, "Can you hear me?"
Oh no. I'm sorry.
That's fine. No, I'm sure it's just because I'm in a very weird corner, so the internet is awful here. But so the question was about the spoilers, right?
Companies restricting spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely feel like, or I did feel at the beginning that spoilers would naturally hinder at least someone's desire to play a narrative-focused game if they're already seeing how the story is going along. But my time at Telltale, when I worked there in like 2012, 2013, all of their market research had actually showed the exact opposite. That the more you kind of show people what the story is, the more they'll want to play, just because they'll want to make their own choices. And I've actually heard that a lot from trailers too. That it's us the audience complains a lot about like trailers that give away too much. But apparently, studies have shown that if a trailer actually gives away a lot, it makes people want to see the movie more.
Right.
Which I don't really understand, but it's hard to argue with, I guess. I mean, I personally am someone who's not really bothered by spoilers, and that I feel like if I'm hearing the big building blocks of a story, it's still not spoiling what I like about movies and books anyway, which is, again, just the details and how the characters are talking and just the way that they get to those points. I feel like streaming and showing the game is really only a good thing and only a positive thing, and the people who want to avoid spoilers can kind of do that at their leisure, and that it's only kind of a bad thing if an article like springs a spoiler on you that you didn't want. But just the act of showing the game early and showing the entire game, honestly, I think is only a way to kind of spread the word that the game is out there, and this is a thing that you should try.
Nice. This is like a really outdated question, but I haven't talked to anyone about it in years, and I just wonder what it's like. Do you remember like 2 years ago when Steam started doing refunds, and there was like a brief moment where everyone who made a game less than 50 hours was like, "Oh no."
Yes.
Is that ever still a concern for you and the team, or did that never prove to be a real problem?
I think it was a concern mostly for games that were trying to get one over on you, where it's like if you play it for a half an hour or 45 minutes and then you've seen every single possible thing that game has to offer, like I might be concerned there. But with a narrative game where you know what you're getting into and the people kind of know what they're buying, honestly, it was never really a discussion with us or a concern, just because it just seemed something that it seemed mostly fair to us, just in a way of like, oh, if I was purely a consumer, that would be a thing that I'd be happy that I could do now.
Right.
And also just nothing that we could really control. Like, it felt weird for us to almost have such a strong opinion about it. Like, no, once you buy the game, you there's no refunds.
No takebacks.
Yeah. We honestly never really were really concerned.
Adam, I want to pick your director brain again. I think one challenge for selling narrative games in 2019 is people are interested in them. People talk like they get they get a lot of press. Journalists are interested in them. There is obviously demand, like you see it on Steam. Like sometimes these things sell like hotcakes. Like you had Plague Tale: Innocence earlier this year. But I think the challenge for any narrative studio is that scaling and keeping costs and cost management works totally different than for other companies. Where if, say, your multiplayer game is getting bigger and bigger, you want to scale up to have people to fill roles to keep the multiplayer going. But narrative is definitely on a project basis, I guess. There's less of a liveness to it. There's less of a what are your thoughts for running night school, especially in a city like LA, and keeping it so that you guys can keep making games, and keep making the next one, even if Oxenfree seemed to sell well. You made your way to the App Store. I'm always seeing it featured in the App Store, which is probably a good sign. But I guess, what are your thoughts about making sure that when Afterparty shipped, you guys wouldn't just be a two? Well, I've been asking the question for a couple weeks because I was at a conference, and before I was saying one game studio, but I guess now, how do you guys make sure you're not a 2-game studio and able to still work at the size you're at?
Yes. Yeah. With a question this big, of course, there's a couple different factors that kind of go into it. For us, I think primarily it's about making sure that we keep the studio as small and as lean as we can, and only hire the people that are absolutely filling kind of multiple holes. Like, everyone in the company that wears a couple hats, and we all kind of take a lot of ownership and responsibility over the parts that we put in. So that just helps us, just with the overhead and just the amount of just heads in the office, of course. But then too, it's also a combination of doing projects that we either have deals ahead of time with, where we know, like, if everything explodes, like the Mr. Robot game, if nobody buys this at all, we still got paid. We still got the money that we needed to keep the studio afloat for those months and weeks and days. And then also doing the projects like Oxenfree and Afterparty, where we're funding it entirely ourselves based on profits of other things, and just making sure that we kind of always have a balance of future checks coming in and making sure that we just have kind of always multiple kind of irons in the fire, because with anything, and particularly in LA, it's like you can go on 100.
Whoops, Adam, we lost you after the word 100.
Right when you started drinking, everything slowed down.
Sorry, we lost you after 100.
Meaning like
Oh.
you can.
So haunted. We're so haunted.
If you heard, did you catch any of that?
We
You're like a
lost
strange
you, as I said
electronic
2
ghost.
times, and I'm sure you heard. Sorry, we lost you after 100. Oh man,
Oh,
sorry.
did response from that or no? No, I'm sorry.
No worries. It's just the internet.
Right now. Normally this is fine. so yeah, maybe the LA fires are creating a thing right now.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
Maybe like just this answer is cursed. You want to just move on, or you want to try after hundreds
Yeah,
again?
right. Yeah. Well, the very short version of it is to just try and make sure that it falls apart. We always have something else to kind of like keep the studio on.
That makes total sense. Yeah, for sure. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about business if you're up for it. I'm curious to know how the launch has gone and sort of like what your thinking was between putting it, like I know it's on the Epic Game Store now and Steam. Like, how do you feel in general about where game storefronts are at these days, and what shaped your decision to put the game out where you did? Oh no. Oh no. Well, it's worth a shot.
Well, we're about to put on a dance show.
Yeah. I'm sorry, buddy. You cut up again. It's we lost you. It's just a frozen face.
Oh boy, and I gotta hit some face pads.
It was the day before Halloween, and all through the internet.
What buttons am I
Skype call up.
Oh no, is it gone again? Are we good?
We got a little bit of you. Yeah, we can hear you. No, man.
I'm playing DDR over here.
Yeah.
This looks fun.
Good. So I did not hear that question whatsoever.
Sorry.
It was just like, I'm curious to know how you feel about the state of game storefronts these days and what shaped your decision to put the game out where you did. I noticed it's on EGS and Steam and console. So how are you feeling these days about the visibility of indies and how is the game done?
Yeah, so the game is doing well. I honestly have been kind of avoiding hearing too many details about what these sales are like. I'm gonna wait until this weekend, but I've just like kind of tapped Sean, the other co-founder and studio head, just like, is it going okay? He's like, yeah, it's going
good,
great. So it seems to be doing well, and I've been more focused too on the reviews as if they've been coming in. But then in general, just about these storefronts, I definitely can understand the complaints about having that too many things that you just don't want to install on your PC and have to deal with, and ways to get games, and I feel like a lot of that is folding into the conversations now about is it a good thing that there's a Disney streaming thing and a Netflix and an HBO and an NBC, and are we kind of getting to the point now where it's people will start going back to cable just because it's an easier, I just want it all, just give it to me, I'll just pay the one fee. But at the same time, it feels like a minor hurdle to be able to really customize how you want to get your games and which games you specifically want, and not have to kind of pay for something that you're not necessarily going to use or see.
Right.
So yeah, my feeling is that the industry as a whole is generally moving into a better space than it was, and that you're just having more options now of just how you want to get things, and there's definitely more options for the independent studios to just stay afloat. Where it feels like there are these massive games like Fortnite that come out and generate just untold sums of revenue. And then those companies are kind of able to use that as a comfort and able to kind of take more risks and take more gambles on indie studios that they want to support and put out more kind of they like these more just cooler kind of experimental things. And I've heard that's kind of the same way in the book publishing world, where it's like something like Harry Potter and these giant, massive books that we hear about kind of make like 99% of book sales. And that's what funds everything else, like the things that win all the prizes. So that kind of feels like what games are right now. And at least for right now, I can't really think of a better way to do it. I mean, that's just kind of what the public kind of jumps into, and what these organizations and the companies and what the indies are able to kind of do and how they're able to survive. But yeah, I personally feel like it's kind of arcing towards a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned you alluded to cable there as like people just want this big package, and I hadn't really thought about it before, but there's a lot of that in games now between Apple Arcade, Google Play subscription, the Humble thing where you just get games every month and this whole like curated collection. There really is more and more space for people who don't want to deal with having to sift through the marketplaces and just get a curated collection. Is that something that you'd be ever interested in doing with your games?
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of always interested in, even apart from the business aspect of just where the games are showing up, but just being in a bunch of different ways that you'll experience it, and just a bunch of different like play styles. Like Oxenfree and Afterparty, of course, are meant to just kind of, you sit down and you play the game and you're there for an hour or two. But it's interesting seeing kind of the Apple Play stuff and things where the play style is much more, you kind of jump into this ecosystem of many games, and you're maybe expected to try one out for 5 minutes or play one for 10 minutes, then hop out and come back in, and to really kind of think about what an interesting storytelling mode would be for that. It's just an interesting, like, creative challenge. Yeah. So yeah, we're just kind of always interested in just how to tell and how to kind of make these games just fit the delivery system in kind of the best way.
Yeah, right on. We got about 10 minutes left in this haunted stream. So if you have any questions, anybody, get them in now.
I'm going to get a question, and then I'm going to need to, for timing's sake, because I'm unfortunately on a tight schedule today.
Brian, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to
in the back there.
Adam, my fascination with your games is that you guys do interrupting really well. Like, characters interrupt and talk over each other in a way that when most other games do it, someone literally they'll be talking and then the next line of dialogue pops up. So you guys do it a lot better. How do you do that?
So the sad answer is that there's just a lot of writing. There really isn't like a trick to it. Because how you make the interrupts work is that you just put a ton of bookmarks in the conversation, so that what that means is that when we know at any point you can cut off a line or cut off a thought, that there just has to be 3 or 4 or 5 different lines then that can feed right back into what they were saying. So it's like if Milo is like, man, when I was 6 years old, and then you click on a demon that you want to talk to and you have a minor conversation with him, that the game kind of keeps track based on that bookmark, and will know Milo wants to get back to talking about when he was 6 years old, so let's go back down to the next kind of version of him talking about that's in the sequence. So then he'll say, anyways, I was talking about when I was 6 years old, and then if you interrupt him again, there's even more versions of him kind of getting back to that. So it's just a matter of just writing a lot of different versions of the same conversations and allowing the game to kind of dip in and out of any of them in any order, and just kind of keeping a kind of mathematical track of exactly what point in the overall story you're at. Just because for me, it's a big thing that I never really want to hear repeating dialogue in the game, just because it kind of breaks your immersion. You get that a bit in Afterparty, just because you're able to kind of challenge demons to beer pong and lose, and you have to be able to challenge them. And situations like that, where we just can't write infinite versions of okay again beer pong, so you'll just have to hear repeating stuff there. But as much as possible, I like it to feel like it's just a natural flowing talk. But yeah, so you just have to write a lot, unfortunately.
Nice.
We're sort of out of questions, so I'm going to start wrapping things up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on the GDC Twitch channel. Nope. Mincewords jumped in with a last second. Other questioner. Got to answer it. Hi, Mincewords. They're curious if Adam has a philosophy about what kinds of stories Night School wants to tell. Oxenfree and Afterparty have similar protagonists with supernatural contexts, and they wonder if you see these as signature elements or if you have ideas about what else you might explore in the future.
Yeah, we always like genre blending stuff, so I don't think you'll ever see us make 100% comedy, 100% horror, 100% action. Oxenfree was very kind of like teen coming of age story that could very much be Stand By Me, except we added in weird, spooky, creepy horror things, and it's a ghost story at the same time. Afterparty could have just been a bar crawl, and you're just out with a bunch of random people, and you're getting out of college, and you're thinking about what next to do. But we wanted, again, something kind of crazy to add it, so we just put you in hell. So we're always going to kind of have kind of a mix of things, and we just like the kind of counterbalances that those make. And I personally always like and enjoy a mixture of tones, and movies and books and things where you're laughing and you're scared and you're crying and you don't know if you should be laughing, but it's kind of funny, and where it's just always kind of keeping you on your toes. But yeah, we always kind of like things that just have a lot of kind of 80s Spielbergian Amblin Entertainment like heart feeling at the core. But that's probably always what we'll like aim at.
Man, did I miss the taxi pickup, or am I still walking towards it? That's my question.
I think you're still. This island you're on is huge. I think this is it. Right
found it. Okay, cool. Mincewords, thanks for your question. That was a really fun level of Afterparty. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the demons haunting our internet chat.
No, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Yeah. That I kept blinking in and out. I hope you understood 10 words of that. So.
It was perfect.
We got some good answers. We harvested content. We partied our way out of hell while I'm still in hell. And with that, I'm going to leave everyone to have a wonderful day. If you are out there in the audience and you are yourself a game developer, we would just like to remind you that registration for GDC 2020 has opened. If you go to our website, you can get your pass. We have a lot of different options for developers of all different backgrounds, so whether you're a AAA developer looking to pick up as much as you can across the game development spectrum, we have something for you. If you're an indie developer, we have lots of great choices for you as well. If you want to join us on the expo floor, if you want to see the talks on Monday, Tuesday, if you want to see the end of the week, there's all kinds of options, and we'd love to have you at the show. If you are not a game developer, or if you can't make it to the show, if you're otherwise just like making games or like the topic of game development, we would love it if you clicked the follow button on the stream so that you can get a notification when we go live. We're doing a rare 2 streams in 1 week this week because tomorrow we're talking to the folks over at Obsidian about the Outer Worlds, and we're actually going to have I hope we get their names right, Tim Kane and Leonard
Boyarsky.
Yeah. We've confirmed them. If you're here today, come back tomorrow because that's going to be really awesome, and I'm so excited for that. With that, have a good